Ooh, yes, it's that time again. It's Tuesday and it is time for Heart and Mind. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this interesting episode today. I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and today we're talking about something that impacts most people in some way or another in their lives. Even if you've never been married, you're dealing with other people's trauma. And although I put adultery, it also counts if you have a supposedly monogamous relationship and the other party is not being faithful. Does it still matter in this day and age? Sign in on whatever platform you're watching this show and let's talk about it. So let's get started. Now, I have promised you no more boring Tuesdays, and I really mean that because the information and the perspective with which we discuss information on this show is different from any other show you can find. And the reason is because not only did I pick Tuesdays, a day when most people don't have a whole lot going on, I'm also a social psychologist. And I explain it every episode because social psychology is relatively new and most people don't know what it is. It is not the same as clinical psychology, just looking at more than one person. We study how the brain works, we study power dynamics, we look at how people learn, how they're influenced, persuaded, manipulated, coerced, indoctrinated, and brainwashed. And on this show, one of the things I do, I bring that science to you. I think most people recognized how powerful propaganda, which is in our field, propaganda and indoctrination can be during the COVID years. Now, it's hard to believe that was started around 5 years ago, but a lot of it is still going on. Grab average Jane or Joe on the street, and you'd be surprised how many of them are still influenced by what they were taught then. Everywhere you look, everybody was singing from the same song sheet, whether they were a paid off celebrity, a paid off politician. So you got a taste of what social psychology does. Usually, social psychology, the methods are a bit more subtle. So we convince you to change your beliefs and behaviors, but most of the time we don't alert you that we're doing it. They were very heavy handed during the COVID years and it awakened a lot of people. So if you want to know how to protect yourself against this, if you want to have an understanding of how you've been influenced to think a certain way or do certain things, this is the show for you. And I'm always talking about issues that are relevant to you. Now, speaking of issues that are relevant to you, speaking of coercion and COVID, please, please, please support Daily Cloud and support your own knowledge base by getting your own copy of the Pfizer papers. Go on Amazon, get your copy of the Pfizer papers. What happened is Pfizer had all this documentation on the dangers of their products, which they went to court to try to suppress for 75 years. The court said no. So they just put this huge amount of information hoping nobody would actually bother to go through it. Well, some people did. Naomi Wolf, Amy Kelly, the whole team, highly qualified people, took the time to go through the Pfizer papers to try to explain what was happening, what the dangers are, and you need to know. It's still ongoing. mRNA technology is still being used. They're trying to use it for other things. They're trying to use it, in fact, in the vaccines for animals, which they say is transmissible if the animal licks you or if you pet them. How scary is that? Get informed. Get your copy of the Pfizer papers. Now, let's move to something a lot of bit different. Today, We are talking about adultery. Does adultery still matter? Does infidelity still matter? And can I just start this off while a lot of people are still signing in? Can I start this off with a real life story from a very close friend? My friend had been going out with this guy for well over a year. Now, I met him after they'd been dating maybe 8 or 9 months. At that time, um, they were talking about co-workers who were having an affair. Now, the one co-worker was married with 5 children. The other one was single. She gets pregnant by this guy, has the baby. He's telling her the usual, I'm going to leave my wife, and doesn't do it. So she went over to his house and said, hey, this is your husband's baby. The response of my friend's then boyfriend was, oh man, that's terrible. That's not playing the game. Ooh, that made my hackles rise. And I said, playing the game. Well, fast forward a year. And my girlfriend called me, oh, just so upset. Come to find out, a close friend of his, of the boyfriend, had actually revealed to her that not only had he been dating another woman while seeing my friend and telling my friend they were in a monogamous relationship, he'd actually married that other woman. And my friend had no idea. Now, with today, way things going today, does that really matter? Isn't it all just a free for all? And speaking of influence, if you watch this, I hope some of you will tell other friends to watch the recording of this, because you need to see this, even though, as I said, it takes time for people to sign on to the stream. But look at how society is influencing us in about our morals. Now, they've been doing this for a long time. How they present the information is key. They normalize it, and they try to say, hey, everybody else doesn't just accept this. Everybody else really likes this. So look at how they House Hunters just featured its first ever throuple. So that's a relationship with 3 people instead of 2, and all 3 people are aware of what's going on. And fans are living for it. So what they're implying is not only is this accepted, it's celebrated, it's popular. If you have a problem with this, there's something wrong with you. That is the implication. And these sort of methods are extremely popular and powerful. They are really good at shifting your moral code, getting you to not pay attention to what your intuition is telling you, not pay attention to the evidence that's in front of you. It's indoctrination, and it goes on everywhere. So morally, we've been indoctrinated not to care about this. And if you look at any show that's on a stream filled with porn, now, not always, the really bad at the end porn, but soft porn everywhere. When did this become normalized? But it also has an impact. And see, so many people are trying to push the envelope even further. I saw this. Did you see this? Where a singer, some guy had a urine fetish. So a singer in a concert pulled down her underpants and urinated on a guy's face. Everybody's trying to push the envelope to the absolute end. And anybody like me who looks at that and says, oh my God, you probably reacted like that too. Oh my God. It's called kink shaming, which means the onus is on you. You're a bad person for being bothered. Here, this man brings his sexual fetish for wearing women's clothes and having huge false breasts. He not only goes out in public that way, he goes to his job as a teacher at a school. And look at Miley Cyrus trying to push the envelope again. This is what she wore on stage. So, does adultery still matter? Yeah, let's talk about it. Ever wonder why your brain feels foggy even when you're eating clean and exercising? It may not be burnout. It could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan MacDonald revealed a direct link between chronic parasitic infections and neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline. More reason to do a full body cleanse at least once a year. The wellness company has a solution for you. Ivermectin plus menbendazole, the gold standard parasite solution, now combined in one cleanse combo, designed to eliminate harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. Medical grade, not some trendy herbal gimmicks. Fill out a quick intake form and get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. Maha is officially here, and the wellness company is making hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Head to Daily Cloud Health and use the code DailyCloud to save $60 off plus get free shipping. On all orders, free shipping. Cleanse your body today. Now, the question we have to ask now, is sexual fidelity even expected anymore? Or is it now a moral free-for-all? I know you have opinions. Tell me what you think. Now, we're having a little bit of problem with our Facebook link up. So if you're having problems with Facebook, go on X, go on Rumble, go on Daily Cloud and sign in. Now on X, you can go to @DrDina1, which is my X page, sign in, and you can make a comment and you can see the show. Okay, I want to hear from you because, wow, this is a hot topic. I would argue this. There is a difference between social trends and human nature. What do you think? Do you think that's true, or am I just being naive? Well, one has to ask, because we're seeing so much going on right now in your own life. How do you feel about these things?
Yeah. Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
Yeah, this is what I mean. If everything's a sexual free-for-all, which is what our mainstream media is trying to tell us, why did the CEO look shocked? Why did Kristen Cavett look shocked? Why did he hide? Why did he resign? Oh, I know you have some opinions on this. Think about it. What if this were you? The American healthcare system is broken. Big Pharma charges an arm and a leg for their products, while insurance companies are focused on growing healthcare spending. So I'm always researching ways to take care of myself naturally. And one of the most overlooked factors is improving your blood flow. That means more oxygen and nutrients to your brain, heart, muscles, and even places that need a little extra help as you age. I use Blood Flow 7 from Juvenon. It works by boosting nitric oxide levels 230% and opening arteries up to 62% to improve blood flow. With just one dose a day, just 2 capsules with or without food. It's helped improve my stamina, energy, focus, and supports my heart health, all without caffeine or stimulants. It's doctor formulated, scientifically backed with premium and natural ingredients. Look, I wouldn't share it if it didn't work for me. Go to www.bloodflow7.com/daily clout or click the link in the description below the video to learn more today. Now, one of the things that people didn't talk about when everybody was going, OMG, I have to admit, if you look on my site, please don't say I'm hypocritical. You will notice somebody put a doctored, AI has a lot to answer for, and a doctored photo of the CEO, Andy, and Kristen, but they replaced him with Bill Cosby and altered her picture so she looked like she was passed out. I wasn't expecting that, and I burst out laughing. I feel bad. I'm asking you to forgive me. That was just, but the stuff that they put out, it lent itself to so many jokes. But ask yourself, did anybody ask, how did his wife feel? What about her husband? There are a lot of people saying, oh my God, being humiliated like that globally must be terrible for them. What about their spouses? What about their children? When you behave a certain way, when you obey the rules or don't obey the rules, it has a flow-on impact far beyond yourself. And we all need to think about that. And I want you to think about this. Infidelity is a fundamental betrayal of trust. If you're like me and you're getting to that age where your body just hurts all the time, then listen up. Don't reach for another painkiller until you learn about this little known turmeric hack for pain and inflammation. You've probably already heard about turmeric being used to fight inflammation and joint pain. But here's the thing, not all turmeric is created equal. Regular turmeric powder in your pantry might help a little, but a leading pain doctor from Connecticut discovered a special turmeric extract that is 200 times more powerful than what you find in standard turmeric. And when he shared this turmeric hack with his patients, the results were shocking. This turmeric extract attacks pain at the source, turning it off like a light switch so that pain not only goes away, but it stays away. Dr. Josh, the brains behind it all, has spent over 20 years helping hundreds of thousands of Americans finally break free from constant aches and stiffness. And his turmeric hack has been the backbone of their success. Say goodbye to expensive surgeries, pain injections, or ineffective over-the-counter medications, and say hello to pain-free living. This is incredible stuff. Once I started taking it on a regular basis, I really noticed a difference. But again, you can't just take any old turmeric. So if you want to learn more about Dr. Josh, his turmeric hack, and the exact method for how to use it in your daily routine, just go to goldenrevive.com/daily clout. The link is right below this video in the description. Just click it and start your journey towards a pain-free, healthier life. Now, I should say before we move on, because there are people still signing on, and as I said, the issues I'm having with Facebook are unfortunate because a lot of people sign on through Facebook. We'll get that fixed, and you can always watch it or tell people to watch the recording. But this whole topic and the response towards the adultery that was indicated by the at the Coldplay concert, was brought to me in a discussion by my friend Melinda Richards, who's an influencer and author from coming to us from the Gold Coast of Australia. Hi, Melinda. This is your
Hello.
time.
Oh,
And you
what a
were
week we've
absolutely
had.
right. We must have talked an hour about this. We were all enthusiastic, and I said, we need to share this with my heart and mind audience. So welcome. And what do you think about infidelity as betrayal of trust? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that infidelity and adultery still matters in our society. I mean, despite all of the tolerance and the woke narrative and the whole freedom of expression and a lot of the debauchery that we see through, chasing kids in the LGBT Pride months and the sexualization, the rampant sexualization of our society in so many ways, I think that this is a topic that's really goes back to our core values and the core needs and wants of human beings. And that is that we want to be treasured and loved, and we want to be able to trust someone. And we formed monogamous relationships for a reason. And I think that that still matters. And I think the explosion of what happened in the last week with these two people and how quickly it happened showed that people reacted and people do care. Trust matters, integrity matters, monogamy still matters. And I actually kind of think this is a bit of good news.
Absolutely. Well, we have had a lot of people join us, so let's just play the quick little clip.
Yeah. Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a keeper. I'm going to have to keep that one. And one thing I should also say, I've had a very unusual life. Okay. So I have lived, I haven't just traveled, and there are a lot of places, there are continents I haven't hit yet. I want to be honest. I still want to go to those. But I've actually lived in 5 different countries. And living in a country gives you insight into things that you don't normally see when you're just there for a tour. And I have dealt with being a social psychologist and a woman of color. People of all different cultures seem comfortable bringing their issues to me. They feel like I will understand. And so I have dealt with all of the different cultures. And infidelity is still hurtful and harmful, even in the cultures that attempt to normalize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we understand on a deep level that when you're with somebody in an intimate relationship, you don't want to share that with other people. And if somebody's cheating on you, you look at the Victorian era where there was no restriction on males with regard to infidelity. There was no expectation that they would be loyal to their wives. And they were bringing, sexually transmitted diseases back to their families. There's always been a cost. It's nature's way. I am a Christian. I believe in God. But even if you don't, it's nature's way of saying don't do that.
Yeah.
And you understand that if somebody only has so much emotion, you don't want that the strongest, most intimate emotion to be just spread around to other people. The thruples, they've always, God, since the 70s, people have come out with open relationships, multiple relationships. So the thruples, they gave it a cute little term, but it's not new. I deal with this too. My practice is unusual in that it's very broad. I deal with individuals and couples, families sometimes, all the way to government agencies. So corporations, nonprofits, all the way to government agencies. My experience, even if you accept the infidelity of your partner, it always ends in tears for someone. Somebody gets hurt. So even if the person tells themselves, if I accept this, then I won't be hurt. That's not how it works. We just weren't meant to live like that. And with regard to cheaters, here's something, Melinda, that I don't know if I've told you this, but I found it very interesting. With my book, Fascination with the Devil, Why Women Love Emotionally Dangerous Men, unlike my other books, which I was trying to keep really short, I actually did almost close to 100 interviews for this one. So I was interviewing people about their perspective on any type of emotionally dangerous partner. So that went from cheaters to users, losers, people who won't commit, everything. I just across the board. When I was looking for women to discuss the cheaters category, here's what I'd do. I learned very quickly. I'd look for a well-dressed woman with a really nice figure whose clothes seemed to be a bit too young compared to her face. And as I don't know if you are a guy, you may not know this, or you may have noticed it with women. Women can always talk to other women. There's just like no restriction. So you can always start a conversation with a woman. And if necessary, I would follow her to the ladies' room, and there's always a line, so it gives you a chance to talk. Inevitably, the women that I would be talking to, their clothes and their figure indicated their actual biological age. They had aged prematurely because their partner was a cheater. And while they were making every excuse to stay with this guy, to minimize the harm it was doing, their subconscious was getting a completely different message, and their anxiety levels were through the roof. Chronic anxiety drives up cortisol, and it starts ruining your skin.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
I know
that is. I didn't know that. Wow. I just. I feel like that's a really interesting way that our bodies tell us the real truth about what's really happening, rather than our brains trying to shield us from what's happening in the real world. Often our bodies will come out and give us the real truth of ourselves. If we're unsettled, disease happens, aging happens. It's really fascinating. Actually, it's fascinating.
Stress and
concept.
anxiety cause all kinds of problems, and it was interesting because the first time I noticed this was when the first time we went on a family vacation, because I had a family that did not have much money. So when we were living in Germany, my parents made friends with a German couple, and they had a holiday home in Brindisi. So if you look at Italy and you see it it's shaped like a boot. In the heel of the boot, you have Brindisi and a small city called Lecce. And I really loved it. We drove down, and I loved it because it was a place where Italians went to the Australians and the UK people for their holidays. Okay. Mm-hmm. For their vacations, it was all Italian. So we were like the only foreigners there. And one of the things a lot of women have noticed is how good looking Italian men are. They're some of the most beautiful men on the planet, along with the Argentines. Okay, some of them and the Brazilians, some of the most beautiful men on the planet. And then I looked at their women, and see, this was before every woman was getting fillers and fake lips and that mask face that they get now, which I think looks horrible. But I noticed that young Italian women were so beautiful. But by the time they were 30, they looked 40 or 45. And I knew why from watching the behavior of Italian men. Now, if you're Italian, don't write me hate mail. I'm not saying everybody, but it is a cultural norm for men to be perennial adolescents, especially where women are concerned. Yeah. So these women were having to deal with these immature men who were constantly cheating on them. And it aged them, even though it was a cultural norm. They knew it was coming. It still aged them. So if go ahead.
It's absolutely fascinating, because I think that even cultural norms can sometimes push against what we want from a biological perspective, what we need, and what what women and men need, which are a little bit different in the emotional state. Yeah. But it's really interesting to see how our bodies can react to trauma and to emotional distress that's going on in our lives. And cultural norms aren't going to change that, clearly. Clearly,
Well,
cultural norms are there to suit the people that really want to take advantage of a certain lifestyle. Let's call it a
well,
cultural norm. Well, let's face
it,
it. We're going through that right now around the world at the moment. There's a very big culture war going on around the world right now, and culture clashes. And this is just really a subculture, isn't it? The whole monogamy thing.
well, I would also say this. Look at the fact nature is I believe it's God. We can call it nature so that we go across the board to all you secular people. Nature
Yeah.
shows us what's good and what's bad. Okay?
Yeah.
Promiscuity has always led to problems.
Yeah.
If you think polyamory is fine, read up on the behavior of what was going on in the harems
Yeah.
that were, but no, it has never been okay. Promiscuity has always led to disease, and the kind of disease that is chronic and just severe, and until recently had no cure. And as soon as we find a cure for most, antibiotics for gonorrhea and syphilis, which have been plaguing humanity since forever, along came HIV and AIDS. It was and now we got monkeypox. It doesn't matter how much we find a cure for, nature does not want us to be promiscuous. It is, even taking aside the sociocultural factors, nature's really like, if you do this, I'm going to
Yeah.
give you disease. And not only will you have the disease, it'll be transmissible. So everyone who gets close to you catches it too. People forget religion isn't just about the afterlife. It provides
Yes.
us with social guidance. So you look at places like the UK that has worked so hard over the last 50 years to remove religion from their culture. Same in Australia, removing religion from the culture, which leaves them completely open to the exploitation of the evil that has come down. They don't know to say no. They don't recognize it in its earlier stages. I made a post earlier on X this week saying one of the things about religion is that when you would go to church or you'd go to the synagogue, you'd have the rabbi, the priest, the preacher getting really emotional, putting it into that part of the brain that makes life choices, because you need to go emotional. You need to go to trigger those primal drives in order to feed that part of the brain. So your preacher would be getting really enthusiastic and telling stories, and that's what the parables are for, to get that information in the part of your brain that makes life choices. And one of the things they put in your brain is how careful you had to be at the early stages of evil. How it was always like, starting from Adam and Eve, oh, you can just take a little bite. It won't be that much of a problem. That's what we have now. Over the last, I'd say, 40 years, for those of us who are 40 or more, 40 years, we've had mainstream society feeding us, just take a little bite, or it's not really that bad, or it's trying to tell us evil's just misunderstood. And if you don't have religion pulling you back from the precipice, and you remember, if you did have religion helping you, you are being blasted in mainstream culture, being told you're naive and stupid and weird and bigoted and extremist. But that guidance was letting you see the early stages of evil that were always going to escalate, always. And we can start again with religion. One of the issues we have with infidelity is that often people put that under the boys will be boys category. Now, it's true that men don't get pregnant. But when you look at studies of children who are the healthiest emotionally, psychologically, physically, They have both a mother and a father who have a commitment to each other. That is the healthiest way to raise children. And if you will remember, all you Christians and Jewish people out there, the 10 Commandments say, thou shalt not. They don't have any caveats saying, but it's okay if you're a guy. So when you're looking at this, and don't get me started on tolerance. I just blasted somebody today. I don't believe in tolerance. I believe on either acceptance or rejection. Don't tolerate anything. Tolerance means...
Yeah, tolerance is a word in the last 30 years, 40 years. Tolerance is now a word, like a number of other words in our language, actually, that is being weaponized. And it's being weaponized against the people who want to go back to some really strong core white European Christian values. And that's they have been tolerant of people calling them intolerant. Western civilization has been tolerant of being told that they need to be tolerant. And this whole word of tolerance now is actually something that I think you make a very, very good point, Dina. It needs to be pushed back against overtly. It is time now to say, if something does not meet my personal core values, because I'm a decent person, you're a decent person, a lot of people in Western civilization are very good and very decent people. But if something is affronting or offensive or doesn't match the core values, you have every right to have an opinion about it, and you have every right to speak out about it, because goodness knows it's certainly happening from the other side. And I think that's what makes this this infidelity topic this week and this whole global phenomenon of, two white people who are supposed to be in a tolerant society, cheating on their spouses and their families, having an awful effect on everyone around them. It just goes to show that those really core Christian values, and that most of society isn't going to tolerate that. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, is that you pick a topic and you say to someone, well, listen, if you offend my core values, if you go against something that is very near and dear to me, and it's about a societal result, and it's about society's trends that we don't like to see what's happening right now, and that is the normalization of adultery and infidelity. We actually don't like it, and we're pushing back against it. We have every right to say that. And now we're going to be called intolerant because that's the weaponization of that word. And I don't think we should be afraid of that anymore. I think we should take the word tolerance for what it is.
Social science has known for decades how the strong impact people have on each other. Another thing I post, you guys need to follow me on X. If you're not on X, you're watching this on another forum, go on X, follow me at Dr. Dina 1. I'll have it at the end. You need to follow me because I talk about a lot of these things. Yes. Social science has known for a long time what a powerful impact anything that you're exposed to has on your brain. Even things you walk past, even things you say, oh, I'm not even going to pay attention to that. Why do you think advertisers pay money to get those little videos on the side when you're on a page, you're trying to find out about something, you're scrolling through or reading an article, and they'll put some little video there? Why do you think they bother? Because studies have shown when you come across that product in real life, you will be more positively predisposed towards it if they've exposed you to it like that. So when people tell me, people don't dare tell me I'm intolerant, because I'm like, I don't believe in tolerance, because I have too much knowledge on how we are all impacted by even what we walk past. So if you are bringing that into my environment, I have a right to object, because you're trying to influence me, whether you know it or not. And you've probably been influenced to think it's okay. It's like all these people who keep saying, oh, what adults do is no, because our lives don't cut off like that. What happens in your bedroom, you don't think it impacts the way you behave in the rest of your day? Don't lie to yourself. It really does. You start bending your morals. You start being really kinky and odd and depraved. It is going to impact the rest of your life. Lie to yourself if you want to, I am not going to lie for you. We need to get back to some core values. And when you talk about to return to infidelity, it is a core value. Being a person of your word, when you make a promise to someone, and once again talking about integrity, you know how big a proponent I am of integrity. When basic rules of fairness, honesty, accountability aren't followed, society falls apart. Contracts aren't kept. Laws aren't obeyed. You can tell the places where the left is trying to destroy the society because they're not holding criminals accountable. They're allowing people, they're rewarding people for breaking the law. Like in the UK, where if you invade illegally, you get put up in a 5-star hotel, while if you're a tax-paying citizen, they'll let you freeze to death in the winter. That's telling the people there we are at war and we are trying to destroy you.
Yes.
We don't have on uniforms. There was no official declaration, but allowing your country to be invaded is an act of war. And it happened in the United States as well when the Biden administration opened the borders and not only allowed illegals to flood our country and flew them around to different states where they wanted the census to count these people so that they could get more representation in Washington. But they also gave them all and still give them all this money. California, by the way, is now suing the Trump administration because the Trump administration said you cannot use taxpayer money for illegals. At first, they said we aren't doing that. Then they're trying to say, well, we are doing that, but here's why it's a good thing. I know Trump, though. Trump's not the guy you want to go toe to toe with. He's not going to back down just because they sue him. Now, here's something else for all of the people who wondered, because as a conservative, this is something that comes up in conversation a lot. There was and is a glaring hole in cultures that treat women like property. So for me, while I see a huge number of problems with the latest incarnation of the so-called feminist movement, which is just an anti-male, no responsibility, hypersexual, draw attention to yourself at all costs, be selfish movement. But that was allowed to come about because there was a hole in traditional culture where, because men had the leadership position, they treated women as though we weren't as important to a healthy society. We cannot afford, if we're going to have a healthy, thriving society, we can't afford to do that. We need to pay attention to that. Don't ignore that. Don't say, let's go back to the way it was in the 1850s or whatever, when women were treated like property. No. We have to look and say, okay, what did we miss back then that made us vulnerable to what's happening now? Any culture that treats women like property is leaving a hole because it is such a fundamental injustice. It feeds unfairness. It feeds exploitation. All you have to do is look at Islam. Even though it's interesting that women had property rights in Islam before they had property rights in the Christian countries. However, on every other measure, women were treated worse and are treated worse than livestock. Even inheritance, the normal rule is that girls only inherit a proportion of what the boys get. They feed the boys better. They nurture the boys more strongly. So of course their survival rates are better. It is just so bad. They measure a woman's success by how many sons she has. That kind of fundamental injustice, and I can't just blame Islam. Look in the Bible and see how many women are mentioned. Okay? We weren't even counted. It was a fundamental hole that we need to fix. So it is okay for us to have different roles. biologically predisposed to have different roles, but we cannot afford a moral double standard, and we cannot afford to treat women as less because we have different roles. So let's get back to infidelity. Melinda, you brought this up. If somebody lies about being sexually loyal, what else do you think they're going to lie about?
Well, the really interesting thing about infidelity, and I think the reaction of people to what happened, is that there were people actually trying to take sides, and there were people talking about cheating and partnerships and monogamy, and it really created this sort of massive global conversation about what people actually value now. And I think it was actually a good thing. I actually, as I said earlier, I think it was a really good thing. And I think that mostly a lot of the guys, interestingly, I saw a lot of mean comments about the woman involved. They took her photo, and there was so many guys coming out there and going, "Oh, well, you've got $1 billion, a beautiful young wife, great family, la la la, and you give it away for this. You've just thrown your life away for this." And all of a sudden, it didn't become about their relationship. It just became about this veneer looks of the girl and the woman. And so, see, women are still in that position in society, in the eyes of men, that, you know, our worth is still tied so much for a lot of men, not all men, of course, but for many men, the worth of what he did was actually tied to who she was. Oh God, she was only the head of HR. I mean, hello, HR. So they dissed on the job title, and they certainly dissed on her age and her looks. So we are still in this, we've still got a proportion of men who value women for their looks and their status, and, you know, the handbag status is what I call it. And that was probably the one thing that I thought was a bit of a shame, but we know it's still there. But they got owned for those comments, which was also good. You know,
well,
so
I would also look at that and say this: if I were his wife, I would be more worried seeing him with the middle-aged head of HR, especially in such a affectionate posture, than I would if he were some 20-something receptionist. Because while, you know, it would be an ego boost to have this 20-something, you know, hottie receptionist, there's probably more layers to it if it's the middle-aged head of HR. They're actually
that's a great point. They were probably actually in an actual relationship with
it would be more than just sex. Because she's 20-something and he's 50-something. They have nothing really to talk about unless he's scouring pop culture to find talking points. They're just at such different points of life. If they come around each other's friends, their friends are like, "Oh yeah, you're getting money from him." I mean, it's no, it's a lot more threatening.
But the interesting thing is, and my big part, my big opinion around all of that was that they didn't want to get caught. He ducked down. He didn't want to lose everything. He threw himself under the chair. He thought maybe, just maybe, I might get away with it. She turned her head, put her hands in her face. At the end of the day, they still valued their lives, their marriages. They probably still loved their spouses. They still loved their families, and they certainly didn't want to get caught. And that's a really interesting thing too. How many people are out there having affairs that still want their cake and they want to eat it too? They want to have the best of all these worlds. And many people do get away with it. So I think that
sort of. They don't necessarily get caught. But one of the things you learn when you start developing personal integrity is that those little changes you make where you're a person of your word, those little changes have a powerful impact. It's like concentric circles going in front of you, like it's like throwing a stone in a pond. Same thing happens,
and people change their behavior. Yeah, they change. And I mean, a lot of spouses, because they know each other so well, they know when their partner's cheating because of their change in behavior. That's definitely a point. I mean, little nuanced changes. You know, when you're living with someone and you're their wife or their husband or their partner, you know, that's why most people get found out. Because you know, deep down.
Well, also, once you start, just like integrity, which I keep harping on because I always try to find the simplest way to make a major change in your life, which is why I keep telling people get Carol Dweck's book, or if you don't read books a lot, just watch her on YouTube. Having a growth mindset, saying, I am going to confront challenges in my life differently now instead of feeling threatened. Please ignore that. I left a note. Don't buzz me with my package, but God knows the person who's delivering probably can't read. So, but when you start lying and deceiving, if you're going to lie and deceive about your primary relationship, it's going to impact your moral code about everything else. So you're going to become a very different person, whether you're aware of it or not. So even if your spouse does not catch you and confront you, what you've done is changed who you are as a person, and that's going to have an impact. So you have all of these men who will do business with these guys who constantly cheat on their spouse. Why would you do that? If they will cheat on the mother of their children, why do you think that when they give you a handshake and an agreement or signed a contract that they're actually going to keep their word? What they told you is, you can't trust me. So pay attention to that. And it is such a slippery slope once you start on it. But the good news is, you know me, people, the slippery slope goes the other way too. Once you start having, that's why I said start with, if you said you're going to bring milk home and you forget, you immediately go back out and get it, because that's a slippery slope too. Integrity builds with those tiny little steps, but so does loss, so does immorality. My mom used to say, if you'll lie, you'll steal. If you'll steal, you'll kill. And what she meant was, once you start lying, then it's a smaller step to start stealing, and in however you do it, padding your expense account, keeping money back, having a secret bank account like a lot of people do where they don't let the partner know, all of that. And then, of course, you have to lie on top of that to hide it. And what if it's a lot of money? What if it's a big thing and the person confronts you? Violence can occur. And whenever violence occurs, the outcome can be far more severe than the people think when they first act out. You can just push somebody, they fall over, crack their head, and they're dead. You can punch somebody and they die. So it is a moral slippery slope. But again, getting it back, if you have been on that slippery slope, you can also start regaining your moral strength and fortitude one little step at a time. Now, I also always wonder about all these women. First of all, there are a lot of women who are hyper competitive with other women, which is why so many affairs happen where the secretary is competing with the wife, and the girlfriend's competing with the wife. And there was a classic song back in the early 80s that said, one of the lines said, people are whispering saying, you don't care. If you'll cheat on your wife for me, you'll cheat on me for someone else. And in the song, pay any attention. Oh, that's okay as long as you only cheat with me. It's like, you know better. You know better. You know this person is not a person of their word. So why would you trust them? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So, all right, people. Now, I know more of you have comments than have actually communicated thus far. Eva said she's reposting the stream, which is fantastic. And we have Disliker talking about the fact that the way I described it with the picture, leaving a hole, is so true. Well, again, if you haven't watched many of these episodes, please know studies have found if you learn information and it is accompanied by a relevant image, you're significantly more likely to remember it. That's why I spend all the time I do putting pictures up instead of just talking straight to the camera. I want you to remember this stuff. It also means that if you're busy, you can just put the episode on and just glance at it once in a while, and you can just see the image, see what's written, and you can learn it that way. Passive learning. So what do you think, Melinda, with this whole infidelity thing? You had a lot to say the other day, and I purposely made it short today because I wanted you to get a chance to really go off.
Well, thank you for giving me that chance. It's great to be able to be on your show and express some of the things that we talk about. It's fantastic. I think infidelity and being truthful and trust and having all of these values tested again, the way that it's been tested, I think it really does matter. As I said earlier today, I think that what we've seen is we've seen a mirror held up to our society in the last week, and we've had a very, very big reaction from the majority of people. Certainly most of the people that I know and that I follow on X have had at least something to say about it. And I think that's because it hits to the moral heart of who we are as human beings. What created our great societies? What moved our societies forward over the centuries? What has actually done that? And I think one of the cornerstones of that has been a truth and a trust and a choosing of a life partner and the building of a family unit and the raising of children and then communicating good morals and ethics and codes to those children to then do the same thing. And so we're breeding generations of people that are becoming better and better as we move through our society and as we move through the millennia. And I think that that's what's actually been happening, and we've been relatively successful at that from a societal perspective, from a core family unit perspective. But those morals and ethics have been challenged and are being challenged at the moment. And I think what this shows is that our society is actually coming out overall and saying, no, we still think it's important to have integrity, to trust, to find a life partner, to be a decent human being, and to treat our life partner well. And if we don't like our life partner anymore, then we tell them that and we gently move on and we move on to the next person. But we don't go behind people's backs. We don't like it when people do that. And I think that's really clearly come out, and it's a big message. And I think it's a shift for me. I saw that reaction and I thought, wow, this stuff is still important. Our integrity is important, and our trust is important, and our moral code is important. Overall, I think it's good.
Well, I would say that the reaction that the CEO and the HR lady had was primal. And we've been indoctrinated to think, oh, everything goes, this is okay. Some people would be like, well, what does his wife have to complain about? He makes a lot of money. On a primal level, we know it counts on a primal level. And also, can I mention something? Because I've had more conversations. When I did that episode a few weeks ago on the true alpha male, what they are, how to be one, as I mentioned on that show, I actually developed a training program to train men to become more true alpha. And while some are saying, oh, a woman shouldn't be doing this, well, the challenge you have is often that men have their defenses up against other men. They won't have their defenses up against me. And I studied it objectively, and I can train someone to be more true alpha. And here's something that the women will like. True alpha males tend to be far more sexually loyal than non-alpha males.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. My limited experience with men is that, the strong men are the really strong men, and they're the men with strong moral codes. You don't need physical strength to be a very strong man and to be able to A, defend your family, and B, defend your moral core values against people who will try and tear those apart. And I think what we're seeing right now in society, particularly in Western countries, are strong men starting to stand up. And they're standing up against not just the woke narrative, they're standing up against mass immigration and invasion and the cultural dilution of Western core values in their countries. And more men are showing their strength by standing up. And I think that you know, when you see these men also have an opinion about infidelity and sleeping around on your wife and going behind people's backs, that's also the indication that you've got a strong man. And if you're a woman lucky enough to have a strong man, I can tell you now, it is worth its weight in gold. And there are plenty of strong men out there, and there are plenty of great, fantastic men out there, and they're strong in so many different ways, not just physical strength. And this is why it's important to get these strong men, these masculine men, because masculinity also means a strength of character. It's really important to get those guys back up on the pedestal. They've been torn down off that pedestal for the last 30 years. They need to go back up on the pedestal. And women, ladies, we need to do that. We need to do that for our men, for our sons, for our brothers, for our boys. We need to do this. For our society. And we need to do it for everybody. Because
that's why I said I want to help build more strong men. So I would love to get access to the military, to law enforcement, and start doing alpha male training. So that not only would they be better at their jobs, be more protective, be less prone to being exploited by people trying to bribe them or deceive them, but they would also, you know, law enforcement and the military have domestic violence rates that are up to 50% higher than the average person in the public. We can get rid of that if we make more true alpha males. But again, here's something controversial. I also think women should not be frontline police. They should not be beat cops. And I also think women should not be in combat in the military. We have different strengths, and the more primal, the more alpha a guy is, the more protective he is of females, and that can totally interfere with what they need to do to keep everybody safe. So it's more
you know, if you told me that 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I would have gone, oh, you know, jumping up and down. But, you know, I actually have moved and shifted so much in the last decade that I 100% agree with you. I'm watching behaviors of different people, particularly videos that are coming out with women on the front line. And we're not saying women shouldn't be involved in the military or the police force, but this whole front line thing, there are a lot of disasters happening out there because women are unable to, they don't have the physical strength and are able to negotiate their way out of very tough situations because you're not going to, because you're dealing with criminals. So the thing is, these are things that I think we've just got to front up to now. We've got to take the really hard discussions, and we've got to take it now and put it back down on the table. And I think the good thing that's happened in the last sort of 6 months to 2 years is as we've pulled ourselves out of the scam that was COVID for that 2.5 year period, is that the Great Awakening is still happening, and more people now are really starting to speak out. And I think that's the best thing, and that speaking out against all stuff, including public infidelity. And that's just another topic that adds to our jigsaw of being a decent person, being a decent human being.
The morals. Let's make morals trend again. And thank you, everybody. If you have any comments, you can always leave comments. You can go on Daily Clout, X, Rumble, YouTube. Leave a comment beneath. If you're watching this recorded, you may not be watching it live. And by the way, if you are watching this after the 1st of August, my website is coming back up. So I'm working on it. As soon as I finish this, I have to work on it some more. Okay. But the website can be reached 2 ways. You can go to www.drdinamcmillan.com. And if you can't spell my name, go on Google and just put Dr. Dina TEDx, and my TED Talk will come up, and it has my name right there so you can know how to spell it. Or you can reach it through my company, Ethical Strategic Solutions. So you can go www.ethicalstrategic.com. So This has been an exciting topic. Thank you, Melinda, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. And if you have questions, comments, or suggested topic, please get in touch. Thanks, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Remember, no more boring Tuesdays.
Bye.